once said, networking is not collecting contacts, networking is about planting relations. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Nerdy Optometrist. Before we begin this episode, I would just like to remind everyone that please stay safe, wash your hands, and remember we are all in this together. As I mentioned about my quote earlier, the importance of networking, our guest for today has set an example how important and amazing networking can be. She's someone who has her own experience and achievements, but she was kind enough to reach out to me just to give a feedback about how my podcast was doing. Surprising enough, when I looked at her achievements, I was inspired. I'm really happy to share my guest for today, Dr. Arathy Kartha, who started her journey in optometry in 1998. She moved ahead to complete her PhD from Australia from Queensland University of Technology and currently is pursuing her Post Doctoral Research Fellowship at Johns Hopkins School of Medicine. Thank you, Dr. Aarti, for reaching out to us and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Ukti. Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here. The time is not good, but I hope everybody, stay healthy and stay safe.
Absolutely. I hope this podcast would help them with some time of learning,
Right.
inspiring, and
So true.
get going during this hard time. So, Dr. Aarti, I have always asked this to everyone. How did you start your journey in optometry? How did optometry come into your life?
It's not a straightforward thing, actually. I will tell you how it happened. So after I finished my high school and then the
Right.
plus two and everything, I wanted to actually pursue English, like English literature. That
Mm-hmm.
was my interest. It is mainly because my father is a professor of English, and he had this huge fan following. Like his students admired him like so much, and I grew up
Right.
watching that. Even after classes, they would come and meet him, and then even when they have moved on with different things in their life,
Mm-hmm.
they would come back to see him. So like watching all that, and I have like my family is full of academic people. So my aunts from both sides, mom's side and dad's side, they were
Mm-hmm.
all academics. So I was like, pretty sure that okay, I wanted to get into teaching, and then because of my father, I wanted to get into English. And then somehow like I scored very well in science and math too. So my father was kind of like, okay, I mean English probably, like I mean I'm sure you can develop on the side, but then why don't you actually like go into a science career, like because I think you have some future in that too. Why
Mm-hmm.
don't you try that? And then I got into optometry. I got to know about it through my uncle. Like, he
Right.
is the one who recommended this field to me, and I didn't know anything
Mm-hmm.
about it till then. So, strangely, like, when they had this, call for applications, it was the last day. Like, BITS had this application closing like tomorrow. And then you won't believe somebody actually took my application by plane and then delivered it to Pilani like directly.
Amazing.
So we were like running out of time. I mean, so I think I
Right.
was meant to be here. That's what I would take it as, because when I went for the entrance, I mean, I was like praying that, oh my God, I mean, now I have to move out of my hometown. Like I have to stay away from my parents. Like I don't want to do this. But I got like the fourth rank in the entrance. I was like, there's no way
Right.
backing off
Absolutely.
now. So I didn't have any excuse. So I was meant to be here. I mean, and I don't regret it one
Wonderful.
bit. But it's the story, like how I got here, is very, very strange. Yeah.
But it's interesting. I think it's so funny. I asked this question to all my guests for the same
Right.
reason. Because optometry is not regulated, and I think when we started, like you, me, and few of my guests, it wasn't that well
Right.
known. People knew something of this exist, but there was not
Right.
awareness. And it is so funny how everyone bumped into this beautiful
Right.
profession, realize the potential and the growth and the effort and things you can bring to grow this
Absolutely.
profession and have
Right.
excelled. So I'm sure, just like everyone, your story is also like really interesting to have someone fly your application to the
Seriously.
form. And
Yeah.
I'm so glad that
Yeah.
happened. I'm so
Me
glad
too.
that
Like
happened.
I'm very happy too that it happened. So now I can't think about it any other way.
Absolutely. So tell me about, how did Australia happen? How did you decide to, do your PhD? Because I know you did your MPhil that we discussed offline
Right.
about how you completed your undergrad, you did your MPhil from Sankara Nethralaya, and then how did you decided to pursue your PhD in Australia?
So when I was at SN, I was working, basically like when you start off, you work in all departments. But then I
Right.
had my eyes set on low vision from the beginning. So
Mm-hmm.
when I was like applying for MPhil, I wanted to take up low vision there. So
Mm-hmm.
everybody was, very like doubtful. They were, like, are you sure you want to go into low vision? Because why?
Right.
I mean, like, you have this, they had like a very good cornea setup, a barometer and everything happening there. So much of research was happening in many other departments. And so they were, not sure, whether I was thinking about it or not. But then I was very sure that I wanted to go into low vision. And at that time, our head of the department was, Mr. Krishna Kumar. He is the
Yes.
principal now.
Right.
He was very supportive. Low vision is one of his areas of interest as well. So when I
Mm-hmm.
mentioned that I wanted to go into low vision, he was very, very supportive. And with that, I started with that area. So, and obviously when you get into an area and you start reading more about it, you develop like some interest in a particular topic.
Right.
And so I was reading more about reading, actually reading performance, and how to
Mm-hmm.
measure that and things like that. So I specifically went into one of the authors, and she became my
Mm-hmm.
mentor later. She was Jan Lovey Kitchen, I mean, who made the Bailey Lovey chart. So
Oh,
she was one of the designers of Bailey Lovey chart. So that's the
interesting.
Lovey. So her papers were like of great interest to me, and I used to like put it up on the board, like, so that I can see it every day. And the way that she came up about how to prescribe magnification and all those aspects, where it was so chaotic, like nobody would tell you, like, how do you determine like what is the magnification.
Right.
But she had a method to it, like to the chaos. So I was like totally in admiration of her work. And
Right.
it so happened that when I was working there, I used to be involved in the newsletter. Like, I was one of the co-editors of the new alumni newsletter. So
Mm-hmm.
I used to, like, collect articles from different people. Like, I used to approach people for getting articles for the newsletter and
Right.
things. So at that time, the director of neuro ophthalmology was Dr. Naveen Jayakumar
Mm-hmm.
in SN. And he used to write articles for us, and he used to be like teaching us, and like had great discussions with him. So one of these discussions, at one point, we were talking about where everything is going and optometry and all that. So he suggested, okay, so why don't you have a international conference? Why don't you call people like Borish? Like, you're
Right.
reading textbooks about him. He's one of the, like, nobody in optometry would ask who's Borish, right? I mean, like, so
Absolutely.
he
Yeah.
was like, call people at that level, who is the
Mm-hmm.
be all and end all of optometry, and then have a
Right.
conference. Like, why don't you do that? I mean, if there is any place that can do this, that's elite school, because of
Absolutely.
how it all began. So why don't you
Right.
think about that? So I, like a good messenger, I took this to the head of the department. And at that time, he became the principal, actually. So he was like really interested in all good ideas. He was a very motivating leader. So I
Right.
I took it to him, and I was like, hey, we discussed about this, and there was a suggestion about this, why can't we do this? And he immediately said, okay, yes, we should do it. And then that's how the Elite School of Optometry International Vision Science and Optometry Conference, EVOC, that still
Right.
happens, even like this year. It's so that's how it came
Yes.
up. Then what I did was, there was a huge low vision session for that conference. Um, and then we had invited Jan Lovey Kitchen also for the conference, actually. So I met up with her, and obviously, like, immediately I knew like what I was going to do next. So I applied, and she was in Australia. She was in Queensland
Right.
University of Technology, and it went from there. So there I was, starting my PhD there. So it wasn't,
Wonderful. I
hmm
actually have two questions based on everything you just shared. One thing is I actually had a similar conversation in my previous
uh-huh,
podcast with Dr. Rizwana, that how these researchers who are writing amazing papers or amazing books that
right.
we read every day has influenced and curved like people's life in optometry. My question is, how easy or difficult it was to kind of get response from these authors or researchers, because I know
Hmm.
people are hesitant, but based on my experience, the minute you reach out to them, they are amazing at responding. So I want to know, how was it for you? Was it difficult to approach these people and get the response, or was it just a cakewalk? All you had to do is just knock the door and wait for an answer.
Yeah, that's a very good question, actually. So I can answer it much better now. I mean, if you had asked me that time, I would have, shared the same thing that you said, because, it's a bit intimidating to approach them in the beginning, but, especially like somebody sitting in another country, like you don't know. You are like, I mean, what
Right.
should I write? I mean, would it come across like I know anything about this area? Like, would I say something like totally blunder? That kind of
Yeah.
thing. So you should be very careful,
Absolutely.
right? So I mean, what I have seen is that, like, now looking at it from the other side, like when you have seen some students whom you have guided, and then now you have seen both sides, what I think is that, it is both ways. It's important, like, for the mentor also to have somebody who is really interested, like, motivated to work with them, as you are thinking that, you have to have a mentor who is really interested in you. So it's like a mutual thing. So they
Right.
are also very open to getting questions from people who have read your work, and then who are very passionate about what you're doing, who share your ideas, and who can take it forward. Yeah, equal
Equal
interest, actually.
interest. Right.
So I have never seen like there is a problem there. Then, like, once you just introduce and tell, okay, why you're writing, and I mean, it shouldn't be like a blanket email, like, to everybody you send, like, I'm interested. I mean, like, you have to obviously mention like why you're interested, and that you have definitely read their work and things like that. But after that, I mean, they are very
Right.
open. Like, you get a reply like within a few hours. I mean, actually, two a day. Like, within 2 to 24 hours
Right.
is like the range, depending on which time zone
Yeah.
they are in, actually. But otherwise, it's very
Right.
very
Right.
quick. So go for it.
Right. I actually would agree that there is a very fine line in how you
Right.
approach people. I have seen that some people would be, as you correctly mentioned, don't put out a cookie
Right.
cutter email that you just copy paste something from online
Right.
and just throw it there. These people
Hmm.
know what it is when you're actually interested versus you're just trying to get
Absolutely.
their attention. And do your research. Just do not go saying,
Hmm.
help
Yeah.
me. You need to be very specific, do your background research, and then ask questions. Then the person would be interested as well. Just don't go saying, I don't know what to do, just
Right.
walk me through the path. So I
Right.
completely agree on that, and I would take that a very good message. And when you mentioned the second question that I wanted to ask was how easy or difficult it was to, approach and develop this whole EVO conference, which is a huge
Hmm.
thing right now. But at that point, being a student, I'm sure you had a lot of fear, anxiety. How did you overcome through this whole process of initiating some things that you would like to share there?
So like I said, actually, my main thing, like, the main thing that I did, my contribution was actually to take the message from Dr. Naveen Jayakumar to, the principal. So that was the main thing. I mean, that
Yeah.
was the starting point. And then if it had been like, I mean, people can have, it could have gone wrong in many ways, right? I mean, they could have just said, like, dispose the idea, like, are you kidding?
Right.
What are you thinking? Like, what have you been smoking? Things like
Right.
that. But then instead of that, like, I mean, it was a wonderful team. So there was the principal, Dr. Krishna Kumar, and then there was Dr. Varadarajan, who joined elite school at
Hmm.
that time. And then we had a great team, like, who were very enthusiastic about something like that coming up. So it was from then on. It was not just me. I mean, I was part of it. I was highly, thrilled that it is going forward. But then after that, it was a team. Like, we immediately formed like a organizing team, and there was a scientific team, and then it was just writing down like the names of people whom we wanted to call. So because it was the first time, we were like, I mean, we wanted to actually call everybody. We were like, we can't omit
Right.
everybody because this person has done this, the other person, like, we have to ask everybody.
Right.
So we went like all out and about. So it was a great
Right.
time. I mean, it is one of the best times still, like, I think about in my life, actually. So I'm so glad
Right.
that it went ahead and it happened. And then I'm so glad it's still happening. So like, it
Yeah,
went on, and
absolutely.
without any lesser spirit, it's still going on.
Actually, I have to mention this that I have attended one of the EVOC sessions, I think, if I'm not wrong, in 2015.
Okay.
And the best thing I like about this is, of course, you get like people from all around the world. You get the exposure and at least that first dialogue that you can
Right.
start with these people who might have just read papers or just read books and seen their names,
Yeah.
but seeing them
Right. Exactly.
face to face is amazing.
Yeah.
But the second thing which EVOC does, which I personally adore and respect, is apart from this being an entire academic conference with all the research given equal importance, it pulls in a lot of Indian tradition there out there as well. So I've
Hmm.
seen this good blend of research and academics, and you have the whole day with sessions going on back to back. Parallelly, you also have an evening with light
Right.
entertainment, which takes care and shares the Indian culture. So I
Right.
think Evoke, SN, you, all the team together have done a wonderful job in putting this conference together. So,
Absolutely. So it's like, yeah, you cannot like, there is nothing parallel to that actually, because it is like, meeting all the people whom you wanted to meet in your own comfort zone. There is nothing like it
right,
actually. So, because if you move out and, you're talking to like people outside, like India, when you get back, I mean, when you're in their country or anything, I mean, you are actually moving out. You're not in your comfort zone. I mean, it's away from your culture, everything, right? But this is,
right,
before that, like it's your best chance to meet with them. They're all walking textbooks actually. I mean, if you want to think about it that way,
exactly,
like, yeah, you're like, I mean, which chapter should I actually think about, like start with,
right.
that kind of thing. So it's amazing. I think there's nothing parallel to it.
I would really like to thank you for being the messenger and starting this whole conference. I think it was fabulous. Now coming back to your journey from PhD, currently you are in United States. You're pursuing your postdoctoral fellowship at John Hopkins School of Medicine, which is another great institute where people have seen wonderful research happening. So from Australia to United States, how was that journey? How difficult it was? What were your how did all that happen?
Okay, so this is like, the twist in the story actually. This is where it all starts. Yeah. So what happened was, I mean, when I actually started out for my PhD, I had I hadn't like set my mind like, okay, I'm not going to come back to India. My thought was always like, I wanted to come back at some time. I mean, in the sense, like I want to go back at some time. I'm still talking like I'm in India, but anyways, so that was my idea actually. So it so happened that over a period of time, like things change.
Right.
Like there have been like major events in my life at that time on my personal side. So
Hmm.
it made me change my decisions like over a long period, because I got married in 2008. At that time, my husband was working here. So, like between Australia and the US, it was like about 14-hour time, difference. So
Difference, right?
I was like there for 18 more months after I got married. So it was crazy. Like, to manage that kind of long distance relationship, it's crazy. Like it wouldn't
Right.
work out. So I had to think about some practical, things to do. So I was like, okay, I mean, let me wind this up. I have to finish up my project and then I'm going to move to the US and then think about like the next step, but I
Right.
hadn't like planned what the next step was. But because I wanted to really give some time to this,
Hmm.
because like we had like 2 weeks break for our wedding, and then it was so funny that we went to Dubai together, and then he went to US like in one direction, and I took a flight to Australia in the completely opposite direction. Our flights were like in adjacent what is that, days. So it was crazy.
Right.
I was like, and then I was talking to people sitting next to me in the flight, and they were like, I had this mehndi and all that in my hand. So they were like, "Where are you coming from? What festival is it?" I'm like, "No, I actually got married." And I was like in my head thinking, "Did I really get married?" I mean, like it was like that. It was crazy.
Yeah.
I was like, I mean, that is where you have to make some decisions. Like, I mean, it's very important to move ahead in your career, but then there are some other things in your life that need some priorities as well. So I had to like make
Absolutely.
the decision there. I mean, even though it was probably like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Even if you ask me now whether that was the right way to go, I don't know. I mean, you had to just make the decision and go with it. So there is no right or
Absolutely.
wrong there. So I moved here.
Yeah.
So that's how it happened. And then when I moved
Hmm.
here, I wasn't like straight away working because I came on a different visa here. And it took me a
Mm-hmm.
long time. This is a very different country. I mean, everything is different. When you come on a certain visa, you're not allowed to work, and then
Absolutely.
like
Yeah.
things like that. So
Right.
I had to learn it all, and then it was a waiting game practically.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Right.
did my waiting, and then meanwhile, things happened. But one thing I can say, like, all that time when I was waiting, one thing that took me here where I am now is persistence, basically. I mean, I wasn't giving up. Sometimes
Right.
I couldn't see like the end of it. I was like, will I ever get back to what I wanted to really do? I mean, sometimes I had that question in my mind. I wasn't even sure. But then, like,
Right.
I was like very persistent that, okay, I mean, I want to do this. This is what I want to do. And then there is, one thing that I had set my mind on was to actually apply to this place, at Johns
Right.
Hopkins, at Wilmer Eye Institute. They have the best low vision department.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of a kind. And then I had my mindset, like, if I'm working on low vision, this is the place to be in.
Right.
They have the best, like, you have to learn from the best. So that was one thing. I had my goal set, but how long
Right.
will it take me to reach that goal? That's something. It was that uncertainty used to, like, bother me a lot at some point.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But now I can say that, it pays off. I can say that because now
Right.
that I've come through the other side, um, I,
Right.
I, I, I would tell that, yes, go ahead. Persistence is what, got me.
Right. I actually would like to, point out two very important life lessons from everything that you just shared.
Hmm.
That whatever decisions we take in life, especially being women, where, course
Right.
of life will change with our private life, getting married or kids and so on and so forth. Do not lose your focus from what you want to do, and it's never too late. So you
Exactly.
can always start wherever you want. Take your break, take your time. Do not feel that it is the end. And the second thing that I really loved what you said is aim for the best. You don't want to just settle down or compromise just because it took longer or it might take
Exactly.
longer than your initial goals were.
Right.
I feel the whole idea should be I want the best thing for my career or my goals. Let's see how that happens and do one small thing probably every single day to reach to that goals.
Exactly. It's like the small step. Absolutely. You
Right.
nailed it. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing those important insights because I'm sure I had the same issue when I moved to United States. I never wanted to be here because I had the same feeling that there's so much to do in Indian
Hmm.
optometry back home,
Yeah.
and I was already working in teaching and participating, creating awareness. So I was feeling I am leaving my
Hmm.
motherland just to get married and
Exactly.
moved here.
Right.
But at the same point, I had two things very clear. One, I had no idea what I want to do in United States, but I wanted to do in something in optometry.
Hmm.
Second, I wanted to go back and not go back physically, but contribute in every possible way.
Right.
So just keep your goals in mind and work towards it. And I think destiny will show you the way.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, sometimes, I mean, even this is not just about you and me, like even people who have like reached, very high positions, women in different fields. I mean, it's something that is like, pretty much like spoken about and written down. So it's like, you can't have it all actually. And then it is that
Absolutely. Yes.
like, and that all, what is that all is something that everybody defines for themselves. I mean,
Right.
so based on that, I mean, it changes for every person. I mean, my all might be completely different from your all, and like for somebody else it might be different. But in the end, it's what works for you, and don't
Absolutely.
feel guilty about whatever you want to do. So
Yes, absolutely. Now tell me about your life and your current, experience that you are having with working and studying at John Hopkins University. So, how was the process of application? Because you did say you had a lot of struggle, going there
mhm,
and pursuing it.
right.
We did briefly talk about it offline. So, if you can, give more insights about it.
Sure. So the process of application is, basically like, you would see applications for postdoc positions. So, it's based on that. But then specifically, there are certain positions that would sometimes process a visa for you. Like, There are
Mm-hmm.
two types of visa basically that would work for this. One is H1B, that's a work visa, or
Mm-hmm.
it's a J1 visa, that is a research scholar visa. So these are the two types basically, and it depends on the institution and the type of funding and everything that they could do this for you. And over a period of time, it has been very, very hard getting a H1B or J1. Like, they have cut down
Ah, yes.
considerably. So
Right.
the amount of opportunities you have as an outsider with, like without a proper visa is a huge obstacle that you have to, cross. So, it took me a while actually. And then it took me a while to get a work permit here. And
Mm-hmm.
so once I got it, that was it. Like I have never stopped working. So
Right.
it wasn't that hard after that. It was mainly because of the immigration process, like my
Yes.
international status that got in the way. But then once that was sorted, I think that was it. I got where I am.
Wonderful. And can you tell me a little more about the research that you're working on right
Sure.
now? Because I know low vision is, I feel, one of the most not famous or glamorous field of optometry.
Right.
People talk about myopia, contact lenses, but there's
Hmm.
a huge need of an hour to, work and look into the low vision uh, domain of optometry. So
Yeah.
can you talk a little more about your research?
Sure. It is not famous for two reasons. One is that it is extremely challenging. Like it's very
Right.
hard. Let's face it. It's not like a very pleasant thing to work with somebody who is extremely visually impaired, and where like they have come from hearing, like they're helpless. Like nobody can do anything about it. There's nothing to fix
Right.
it, but you can only like go about helping them by rehabilitation, or by training them with the
Right.
existing condition. So it's like a very hard thing to explain, first of all. And then also, like, the other side of it is that it's not very lucrative. So in the
Right.
time that you can see, like if it's a private practice, in the time that you can see a low vision patient, you can see probably like three other types of patients. Like it takes a
Right.
long time to evaluate them and come up with solutions that and it doesn't pay off. Like low vision devices are not covered by insurance, so things like that. There are a lot of things in terms of money side, like financial aspects of
Right.
it. So many people don't opt for it, like when they're doing private practice and things like that. It is not a good option at all. But
Right.
even then, when people do it, it's not like a very systematic field. It's very chaotic, mainly because
Right.
like you said, exactly, like myopia or any other condition, it's like a condition specific research. You are talking only about myopia, but then here
Right.
there is nothing like one type of low vision. Low vision is everything, and it's a very complex field. So there are very few people working in it, and but there is a lot of work being done in this area.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. So, what is your area of research that you're working? You did mention you're working something in the reading aspect of low vision
Right.
for children.
Yes. So for my PhD, I work with children because in SN, when I was working, I was seeing a lot of kids with low vision
Right.
there. That was, in the Indian population, you have a lot of conditions that starts like from very young age. Like you get a lot of
Right.
Stargardts, or, the cone dystrophies and things like that. But then outside India, so I wanted to work with children mainly because, I saw a lot of patients and there was not much research done in children with low vision. Most of it was done
Mm-hmm.
in AMD and the older population. So I
Right.
wanted to explore that area. So when I went to do my PhD, what I realized was that there is a big difference, like in terms of the kind of children you see outside India. It's mostly when they talk about low vision, they come with multiple disabilities. There is more of cerebral palsy or Down syndrome and
Mm-hmm.
things like that, not just low vision. So
Mm-hmm.
there is like a lot of coexisting conditions with these children. So the conditions that have only low vision is not very common.
Right.
So even then, I was set to work with this. So I went ahead with doing my PhD in reading because, reading is something that is very, relevant to kids when they go to school. So in
Right.
Australia, how they work is that in Australia and for the rest of the Western world, the children actually, the education is integrated. They don't go to special schools, or, they don't have different classrooms and things like.
Right.
they go to the same classroom, and then they have teachers for the visually impaired. So there are designated people working with these children in the same classroom
Mm-hmm.
to help them with the
Mm-hmm.
accommodations. So that's how it works. So
Right.
it was really interesting. So I was working with reading during my PhD, and
Mm-hmm.
in Queensland there is a pediatric low vision clinic, which is also one of a kind because it is only pediatric patients that they see there. There are not many clinics like that in the world because after I finished my PhD, I was looking for something very similar in US.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't find like a like a pediatric population, like a clinic dedicated to
Right.
only the pediatric population because the numbers are very less compared to the adults. So
Got it.
there are very few people working in that area. um,
Mm-hmm.
so once I finished my PhD, I was not working on reading anymore. Right now, my postdoc research is about functional vision assessment. So that
Mm-hmm.
is not about reading, but because in this population that I'm working with, they don't have
Mm-hmm.
any form perception. They can't see any shapes and things like that. Forget letters, because it's like
Right.
the lower end of the spectrum, very very profound visual impairment. So reading is not a task that they would even think about, because their
Mm-hmm.
vision is so poor. So right now, what we are trying to do is, when you can't measure, their letter acuity, or like what you do in the
Right.
clinic, counting fingers is not an applicable solution because it's not controlled. You don't know the
Right.
contrast. You can't calibrate it.
Yeah,
So
there's no standardization in finger counting
exactly.
or
Yeah.
right.
So once you can't measure it with, the Bailey-Lovie chart, then what do you do? Even at one
Right.
meter, they can't read the top line. Then what can you do? So there are ways to go about it. One way to do it is by, measuring how they perform their daily activities, like performance measures. And it
Mm-hmm.
is it is a very extended calibration process for that, and that's what I'm working on right now. So we are doing a test. We are developing a test, which is using virtual reality as a platform, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing with this with my mentor. His name is Jilan Danieli. So
Mm-hmm.
with Dr. Jilan Danieli, we are working with this test, and we are trying to validate this test for this population, which is called ultra low vision, which is very very low vision. And
Mm-hmm.
we have so far tested about 60 people, and we need like a lot
Wow.
more people to validate it, a larger population. So but once validated, it is a very useful test. You can measure their functional vision before, like suppose they are going in for a clinical trial,
Mm-hmm.
like they're getting one of the gene therapies or stem cell, or like a prosthesis or anything like that. We now
Right.
have a measure that we can do before the treatment, and then we can repeat it after the treatment so that we know. Because most of these people, even after treatment, they won't be able to immediately read letters. Their vision is not
Right.
going to restore to that extent. Like even if you
Right.
like, for example, you take retinal prosthesis like the bionic eye. So they
Right.
were before and after getting the bionic eye, they land up in the ultra low vision range. So
Right.
how do you measure their vision? Like, you can't make them read letters, but at the same time they have gained something. And what is that something?
Right.
To quantify that, you need a test. So that's how it all started actually, and then now this is what we're working on. So we have like different phases of it, and right now we are almost like finishing up phase one, and we are going to phase two, and then the phase three as well.
Wonderful. I think it is so amazing to see how technology, virtual reality, and all those things, all the newer technologies are coming together to help optometry in every domain, whether it was binocular vision, low vision, contact lenses, teleoptometry. I think it's fantastic to see how medicine and technology are collaborating for the future treatments and the treating methods in eye care. So I think thank you for working on it, and I think wish you good luck for
Thank you.
achieving and looking at that spectrum of people who are usually might get neglected.
Absolutely.
Uh, so one last thing is I do know you are a mother as well. So how do you manage your work-life balance? With having kids around, how does that? What motivates you to manage everything together?
Well, yeah, that's a question which is like very important when you're living outside India, I guess, because there. I mean, I have looked at this once. I had my daughter. She's my older one. So
Mm-hmm.
once I had her, that is when I started thinking about it. Like, I was thinking every day, like when I wake up, I think like, okay, what should I do now? Like, what are the activities that I have to do? How can I keep her engaged? What food should I give her? Things like that. And then I was thinking also, like, when we grew up, like, we had cousins, we had people in the family who are younger than us, or, like
Right.
even when you grew up, like you have seen lots of kids around, but then you have never heard like people investing a lot of time thinking about how to keep the kid engaged. Like, it's not a topic
Right.
that people discuss back there. Children somehow grow up, they out of a like they you see them being born, and then out of the blue, like they are in college, like in between the stages you never hear about parents talking about it like in great extent, because
Right.
it's like and actually I think it so happens that it's a whole village that raises the kid. That's how it's supposed to
Right.
be. But once you come
Yes.
here, like, now you're by yourself, it's a different country, like you don't have your family or immediate, relatives close by. And that is when you actually start to think about this whole raising a kid issue. And it becomes like a task then, like then you start
Right.
thinking about it. So it's a very different experience. Because you can like imagine, I wanted to work with children even for my PhD. So I was very fond of kids. I was like, okay, I mean,
Yes.
I love, pediatric population until like when you have a
Yes.
kid of your own, then the story actually changes. You were like, oh my goodness, this is totally different. It's a different game.
Right.
It's not a matter of whether you like kids or not at that point. It's a totally different area that you have never thought about before having a kid of your own. And
Right.
thankfully, in my case, one thing that worked in my favor was that when I had my first child, I wasn't working then. So I
Mm-hmm.
had like some time in my hand, and then I had like the entire first, the formative years in her life, like first
Mm-hmm.
4 to 5 years, I had, enough time to give her. Like, I had enough time to
Right.
go to her school, invest in all the activities, like, participate in every single thing that she had to do. So, I had it like all like proper. Like I could
Right.
give that. I mean, it was not by choice, but then it worked that way, so that I learned it that way. So
Right.
but with the second one, like I had already started working, so it's completely different. But if I hadn't had that experience with the first one, I'm not sure like how I would have managed working with the first child. I mean, now thinking back about
Yeah.
it, I wouldn't have it any other way, because it's a full-time job actually. I mean, I don't know how
Absolutely.
people do it. I mean, if you want to do it like the way it's supposed to be. But then, like, here, I mean, of all the countries in the world, US has like the lowest of maternity leave. I think like it's about 6 weeks or something. So it
Right.
hardly gives you anything. So you are totally like then leaving your child in somebody else's hands. And then I'm not judging, like it happens, like I have done it with my second one. So I'm not judging like which way is right or wrong. But
Right.
that's how things happen. So everybody has to like do it the way it works for them. And either ways it's fine. In the end they turn out to be fine, because I have one which was developed that way and one this way. So I can easily say that, I mean, like,
Right.
I mean, there is no best way.
Believe in your
Right,
system. Yeah.
exactly. Whatever works. And everything has to, in the grand scheme of things, you have to make decisions based on what is available to you. I mean, you can't really,
Right.
go out of that and then think about, okay, this could have made this. I mean, who knows? I mean, we don't know that, right? So,
Right.
you
Absolutely.
strike a balance, whatever with whatever you have available, you strike a balance there and do the, best you can. And I think that will come out to be, the best.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. It's actually very important being a woman and a mother, where, we all, I think at some phase, especially if you're from India, you have that guilt trip of leaving your child alone and working. And, those in head you have this thing, you have to give attention because you do not have the support system you're looking for
Right.
in
Yeah,
United States or in any other country, versus what you might have back home. But just believing that whatever system you choose is right for you and for your kid, I think it's the way out, and not to have any regrets for the decisions you make.
absolutely.
So yeah, I think that's the way to go. And thank you so much for sharing all your life journey with us and the listeners. I really appreciate you reaching out to me and sharing your journey. Thank you so much, Dr. Aarti, for being part of this podcast.
Thank you so much, Ukti. Good luck with everything, and thank you.
Thank you.